Welcome to the U, if many of you are not already members of our community. What I do here at the U is I'm a professor in the Department of Neuroscience. But I take time in my summers and I teach neuroscience and the pedagogy that one can extract from understanding about neuroscience to K-12 teachers in a professional development workshop that we call Brain U. And you all have a flyer about this coming summer's Brain U. And the critical response protocol that I'm going to focus on today is a classroom technique that was brought to the Brain U by a former teacher who had come through Brain U and who is now a candidate for a PhD in the College of Education and Human Development, Shar Ellingson. So this is really something that was started in so that's Brain U, sorry. Okay, so the critical response protocol was initiated in the arts community to give feedback to performing artists, especially dancers, developed this set of questions to give each other critiques of their choreography, and it was subsequently adopted by the visual arts community, and the Perpich School for the Performing Arts in the Minneapolis public school system was using this critical response protocol when Shar Ellingson, who is a science teacher, wanted to bring some art-related ideas into STEM education, science, technology, education, and math. So this really results from a meeting of minds in multiple disciplines, and we have been using it in our professional development very, very successfully, and Shar and colleagues have begun to use it in their science classrooms very successfully, and I think it actually has universal application to all kinds of K-12 classrooms. And the reason I'm bringing it here today is because it promotes equity in the classroom. It is a way of introducing a topic. We all want to promote good discussion in classrooms. Classrooms have lots of benefits that we get from getting students to think with us as we run a session. We want them to be motivated. We want them to participate because that encourages them to explore the content. And we want them to generate ideas. The problem is when you get a classroom, not everybody wants to participate. You have the eager students who are always hands up, and you have the ones who kind of sit back and let the whole thing go by because they know if they can become a mouse and sit in the corner, the teacher might not call on them, and they're not put on the spot. You have those who might be uncertain about the material and not feel like they're up to competing with the hot-shot person in the class who's always got the right answer, so I don't have to give an answer, Jennifer will give the answer. So there's a lot of real reason to try to make a classroom discussion more equitable, not to just let it fall within the hierarchy that gets established among the students in the classroom without your doing a thing. I mean, everybody knows who the smart kid is. Everybody knows who the kid with some kind of a disability is. And that hierarchy keeps people from participating. And what I like about this critical response protocol is it gets beyond that. It is a simple set of 5 questions, all right? And the trick is to go through those questions equitably among all students with everybody participating. In 10 minutes, I don't have time to take you through it. But the questions are these. First of all, what do you see? What do you notice? So if we put a big, scary diagram up, you don't know what it means until you really look at it. So the first idea is to go around the classroom in some systematic order where everybody gets a chance to answer the question, I notice, and they complete the sentence. And I, as the instructor, go to the board or the post-it sheet and I write down everybody's responses. I notice something red. I notice a green box. It does not have to be detailed. And at this point, you are preventing students from making interpretations. I don't want to know what you think it is. I want to know what you see. We're just going for observations. The second question is, what does it remind you of? All right, so again, no interpretation. We're going to look at this and we're going to say, well, it might remind me of something like, I've seen in biology class. Or it might remind me of a complicated diagram out of the science book that scares me. All right, so it doesn't matter what it reminds you of. Every student, it reminds them of something, and you validate that by taking those ideas and writing them down. So you'll end up with 5 sets of lists. What do you see? What does it remind you of? The third question is what I think is the most critical. How does it make you feel? We're not interpreting whatever the diagram is. We just want everyone in the class's response. And as I go through the class, all of these successive times, I start in different places. So the person in the back might be the first person on this go round, but we zigzag through the class so everybody gets a chance, and you will find, oh, I know what that is. I'm excited. I have no idea what that is. I'm afraid. It's okay. You validate the students' emotions by just writing them down. And when I, as a neuroscientist, saw this list of questions, I couldn't figure out why that question, what does it make you feel, was in there. I couldn't figure that one out at all. And now I understand that's the most critical question. The fourth question is, what questions does it raise? We still don't know what it means, but what questions does it raise? What do you want to know by looking at this complicated diagram? What is it that's, as we've now gone through the class 3 times, this is our 4th time through the class, people can ask questions. And the questions might have to do with some of the content that's on this complicated image. And it doesn't matter what the question is. Everybody has a question, and everybody's question gets written down. And only after that 4 full times through do we get to the final question, which is, what do you think it means? Speculate on the interpretation. I don't expect you as a class to know what this is about because it's brand new. You've never seen this before. There's no way that you should have this knowledge. But we've thought about it a while. What now do you think it might have to do with? And we go through the class the last time with people making guesses at the meaning behind the image. And I, as an instructor, dutifully write down all of them. And the surprising piece is, by the time we start getting to the 3rd or 4th person, there begins to be an unspoken discourse among the participants in the class, and the ideas begin to converge on something very close to what the image means. The classes don't always get the full meaning, but everybody in the class has had a stab at observing, comparing, emoting, questioning and getting involved because they're raising questions, and now hazarding a guess at a meeting. So putting a personal hypothesis out there. So by the time we get to the end of the class, there has been some meaning made in interpreting this image by the entire class. And that gives me time as the instructor then to wrap everything up, pull in all of the student observations, all of the student hypotheses about what this image might mean, and actually explain what it means. And because I have involved every student in answering every one of the 5 questions, I have buy-in from everybody. This is a perfect way to introduce a new unit, and it can be science, it can be math, it can be art, it can be literature, it can be anything. It can be social studies. What is it? All you need is an image, or you could have a 3-dimensional object. It doesn't matter. You need something unique about your content to get the students involved in. And it is, I can't tell you how surprised I am at the outcome. The reason that that middle question of feeling is so important is it lowers all of those fears about, I don't know what's going on. I'm not smart enough to understand this piece of science. If you as an instructor know where your students are and pick an image that stretches them a little bit but isn't totally incoherent for their level, you can get them to understand complicated diagrams. And you will get them involved in the activity. My image here is actually about different parts of the brain that are involved in a circuit that helps us to read. And it's a circuit that develops when students are trained to read in the kindergarten, first, second, third grade process. So these circuits aren't necessarily functioning in the brain prior to reading, but they are, this ventral word form area in red is actually a part of the brain that begins to recognize faces early in life, and we retrain that part of the brain to recognize letter symbols and number symbols and to give those meaning and to then put those words into, those letters and words into meaning with auditory and functional meaning in this kind of a whole brain circuit. So if I had an hour, we would go through this with those 5 questions. What do you see? What does it remind you of? How does it make you feel? What questions does it raise? And what then do you speculate it means? It's a fantastic little piece of pedagogy. And what it does is it equalizes everybody in the classroom. It takes that person who's always there and it shuts them up because they can only say one thing. And it gives the people that I call the mice that never open their mouths an opportunity to have a contribution which is on the same level as everybody else. And what I find is the least likely people in the class are the ones who probably are the ones doing the most synthesis and coming up with the ideas at the end that help bring the class together. So I encourage you all to use it in your practices. We had a short article in the Science Scope about it, so that's what the handout is. So you've got the questions in there if you didn't take notes.
I have extras here.
So why use it? And there it is. Thank you.